In today's world, communication is happening everywhere, all the time, and it's definitely not just about writing dry, formal essays anymore. You are constantly dealing with messages across an incredible variety of platforms. Quick social media posts, funny videos, urgent emails, detailed digital reports, and yes, traditional school papers. Because information comes at you in so many different shapes and sizes, you really need to be flexible and adaptable in how you read, create, and respond to content. This is exactly why it's so important that we focus on developing strong, adaptable strategies for reading, writing, and creating messages. We're going to explore practical ways to produce compelling work, revise it effectively, and most importantly, learn how to think critically about every single message you encounter. Whether you're completing a serious academic assignment or just trying to share a thought with friends online, you'll learn to communicate smartly and effectively, no matter the platform or the audience. This skill is crucial for succeeding in school and navigating the digital world. Honing your strategy toolkit. So what does this strategy development look like in practice? It involves actively experimenting with various techniques to see which ones work best for a particular situation. One of the most foundational skills or techniques to develop is proofwriting. It is what you need to get you started on a writing project. Two techniques that are particularly helpful here are outlining and mind mapping. An outline could be simple or a more detailed topic sentence structure. Either way, it should form a blueprint for your argument. It forces you to think about the logical progression of your ideas before you invest hours in drafting paragraphs. Keep in mind that you can make changes to the structure later on. This initial outline helps you think through the argument, but as you write out the full paragraphs, you might refine the structure. A visual approach, which is more organic and free-flowing, is mind mapping. This involves starting with the main idea or topic in a circle in the middle of a page, and then visually connecting ideas which radiate out from the central concept. This is excellent for brainstorming or for projects where you're still figuring out the core argument. Staring at a blank page can be tough, but free writing is a fantastic way to start any project. The rule is simple: just write. Set a timer for 10 or 15 minutes and don't stop, even if what you're writing sounds silly. Forget about grammar, spelling, or flow. The only goal is to generate new ideas. This technique is perfect for beating writer's block and discovering unexpected things you want to say about your topic. It's basically brainstorming your thoughts right onto the page. Once you have that rough draft, you can start shaping it up. A game-changing revision trick is reverse outlining. You make a traditional outline before writing, but you do this one after you finish the draft. Go through your paragraphs one by one and write down the main point of each one. Then look at that list of points and ask, does the flow make sense? Do I have any gaps? Am I repeating myself? This process instantly shows you structural issues you'd miss by simply reading through. You could think of initial intention versus the final execution like mapping a journey. You set out with a clear destination in mind, your intention, and afterward, you check your actual path, the execution, against that original plan. Did you get where you wanted to go? Specifically, after completing a substantial project, say a long research paper or a complex proposal, you must reflect on whether the original goal was fully achieved in the final draft. If your original goal was, for instance, to argue for a specific policy change, you shouldn't just look at the grade. You need to ask, did my argument compel the reader toward that change? Was my evidence persuasive enough to support my stance? The execution needs to deliver on the promise of the intention. If you aimed for a highly professional tone but ended up sounding overly casual, the execution failed the intention. If your goal was clarity on a complex issue, but the final draft still leaves the reader confused, the execution needs work. This reflective process should be highly specific, meaning you need to actively seek out the weak spots and learn from them. You need to identify specific paragraphs or sections that did not meet the intended goal of clarity or persuasiveness. Maybe your introduction was confusing or your conclusion felt weak and rushed. Perhaps a body paragraph lacked strong evidence or the transition between two sections was jarring. By pinpointing these exact areas, you move beyond vague ideas of bad writing toward tangible, actionable steps for revision and future projects. This kind of self-audit transforms failure or mediocrity into a learning opportunity. Utilizing rubrics as a tool for evaluation. While self-reflection on intention versus execution is crucial, it benefits from having an objective framework, and that's where the marking rubric comes in. Rubrics are tools that are used to assess a project. They are formatted as a table or grid with criteria for achievement of marks. A marking rubric is a scoring guide that acts as a blueprint for success on any assignment. Think of it as a contract. It clearly outlines the specific criteria your work will be judged on, such as organization, evidence, or clarity. For each criterion, the rubric uses descriptive language to define what different levels of performance look like. Levels range from needs improvement to excellent. By seeing these expectations up front, you understand exactly what you need to aim for, ensuring that the assessment process is fair, transparent, and consistent. So don't view a rubric just as a grading tool your instructor uses. See it as a powerful tool you use for your self-evaluation. It provides the established criteria for success in a particular genre of writing. So what we are saying is that the most effective way to use rubrics is to score yourself in an assignment you are writing before submitting it. Before your instructor even sees it, you can take the rubric and meticulously score your own work. Do you genuinely meet the exemplary standard for thesis clarity, or are you closer to developing? This exercise forces you to see your work through the critical eyes of an evaluator. For instance, if the rubric deducts points for unsubstantiated claims, you can go back and confirm that every one of your major points is backed up with credible evidence. The real power of this process lies in applying the rubric before a final revision to target areas needing improvement. If your self-scoring reveals you're weak in organization and flow, you know exactly where to spend your limited revision time. Instead of vaguely trying to make it better, you can dedicate a session specifically to checking transitions, topic sentences, and the overall logical progression using your reverse outlining skills, as discussed in the previous set of points. Using a rubric proactively moves revision from guesswork to a focused, strategic intervention. Reflecting critically on composing processes. Finally, growth isn't just about fixing the final product, it's about improving how you create. This requires you to reflect critically on the development of personal composing processes over time. How do you go from a blank page to a final draft? That process is unique to you, and it needs constant fine-tuning. One great way to do this is to actively document how one's drafting habits have evolved. For example, maybe you realize that trying to write a whole essay in one all-night session leads to burnout and sloppy execution. By reflecting on this, you might deliberately shift your approach, moving from writing in one long session to using scheduled, shorter blocks. This habit change might result in better quality writing, less stress, and more efficient use of your time. Perhaps you've learned that your first step should always be the reverse outline, or that you write better if you draft the introduction last. Documenting these successful shifts reinforces them as permanent, positive habits. Another critical step is to analyze how feedback from peers or instructors in one project was successfully integrated and applied to the next. This is perhaps the highest level of learning. When a peer review pointed out that your sources were too old, did you simply fix it on that one paper? Or did you internalize that lesson and now instinctively look for sources published within the last 5 years for subsequent projects? This kind of analysis ensures that the lessons learned from one communication challenge, whether it's an academic essay or a professional presentation, are generalized and leveraged for future, different challenges. It's how you build transferable skills, turning temporary fixes into lasting expertise. By integrating these 3 reflective practices, assessing intentions, utilizing objective rubrics, and refining personal processes, you transform every writing project into a step forward in your overall growth as a communicator. Critical writing goes hand in hand with critical reading. A writing portfolio is a carefully organized collection of a writer's work compiled over time to demonstrate the development of their writing and reasoning abilities to an audience, such as an instructor. Following are some requirements and tips of developing a writing portfolio. Self-representation. The portfolio's organization and appearance reflect that of the student. In other words, if it is clean or messy, creative or standard, it will reflect how the student is represented. Completeness. Include exactly what is required by the instructor and never less. Supplementary material can be added if it enhances the presentation and is accompanied by a memo explaining its value. Quality control. Ensure all final drafts are as close to perfect as possible in terms of mechanics, formatting, and adherence to genre conventions, demonstrating a high standard of work. Demonstrate growth. Show the evolution of papers by attaching early drafts to the final drafts. This allows the audience to trace the revision process, effort invested, and risks taken. All drafts must be clearly dated. Show work in progress. Include partially finished work, like outlines or tentative drafts, with explanatory memos to suggest future intentions and the writer's ongoing intellectual engagement. Organization. Include a table of contents and arrange the papers using a clear organizational logic. For example, chronological order from oldest to most recent shows an evaluation of writing skills. On the other hand, reverse chronological order, or newest to oldest, highlights the best work first. The reflective task, free writing. A crucial component of development of writing is the reflective task of free writing or quick writing. This is an informal process of writing quickly and continuously about the creation process and the finished product of an assignment. The purpose of free writing is that it helps clarify thoughts, consolidate ideas from the assignment and personal experience, and build confidence and discipline in writing by emphasizing volume and natural style over perfection. All writing, whether in a portfolio, on social media, or in the classroom, is a conversation. By adopting the analytical and evaluative strategies practiced throughout the course and composing with rhetorical intention, writers can master communication and make an impact. This ends Unit 3. I look forward to meeting up with you again in Unit 4.